Good evening once again. It's good to be back with you, all our viewers and listeners all over the world, wherever you are. Welcome to the 63rd edition of the Issues Room, the alternative social media platform here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. And we also have our broadcast repeater on ABC FM 105.1 in Monrovia, Liberia. Tonight, we have a very beautiful discussion, Stack House. My colleague Moses Sandy in Delaware will be joining us momentarily. And also our two guests here tonight, veteran journalists, eminent journalists, in the persons of Akina Wesley and that of Jerolimek Pia. This evening, our conversation will center around the collaboration of political parties, commonly known as the CPP. Where is the CPP? Is the CPP still viable? Is it alive? Is it asleep? We know it's not completely dissolved because we still believe that someone is still holding the hem of leadership, and that person has been set free from all of the legal wranglings. And so we're going to discuss if the CPP can reawaken to become that once feared, formidable force to unseat the current leadership. Good evening, everyone. The Issues Room is Tuesdays and Fridays here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, as I said. My name is Volcano Shelton. Moses Sandy joins us now from Delaware. He's all set. Welcome, man. Wake up. The conversation will be fiery tonight, as I said earlier. Let's talk about these things tonight.
Definitely, it will be Volcano. Again, it is pleasing to be back in the Issues Room. Another week has elapsed, and this time we have come strong to discuss the issues of the day. Top Mama Liberia. Volcano, how is it in the city of Philadelphia?
It's great. It's great. The city of brotherly love. You know, we always looking out for the brothers and showing affection to the sisters. So you can't ask for more. But I'm in good spirit because our panel tonight, two interesting brothers. I have profound respect for these gentlemen, and I know that they've already done the homework, and they'll be joining us momentarily. But let's not dwell long on our intro. Quickly, I just want to remind our folks in the chat room. Let us know that you're catching us live, receiving us. Please go ahead and share the link, share the page, invite a friend, so we can discuss this tonight. We'll open the lines momentarily to invite you, our viewers and listeners, to participate in these conversations. So without further ado, like to say, let's go to our trending news. We have a few things on the bullet here before we bring in our studio guests. President Weah and delegation are back home following official visits to Equatorial Guinea, the United Arab Emirates, and the Republic of Ghana. I believe in Ghana he went by there to participate in one of the ECOWAS, I believe, summit.
ECOWAS meetings.
Yeah. The president attended the meeting of the African Union on Terrorism and Peace, on the African continent. He also went to the UAE to sympathize and console the first family for the recent death of that country's president, Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan. And he made a brief stop in Accra to attend the ECOWAS meeting. So we hope that his trip abroad will reap some positive results for the country. From your end, Moses?
Yes, the former vice president surprised many yesterday. He expressed no confidence in the leadership of commissioners of the Liberia National Elections Commission. He says that the commissioners are incompetent and corrupt. From your end, Volcano?
Well, from my end here, PUL condemns the recent attack on journalist Prince Moba of Prime FM by some employees of B Mountain. Journalist Moba was attacked and physically assaulted while covering a protest at the headquarters of the company in Monrovia. The PUL described the incident as callous and anti-democratic. So those were some of the trending news coming out of Liberia. Moses. We'll just go straight now. Welcome our two formidable guests. Let's start in the sequence of bringing in Mr. Akina Wesley. Mr. Wesley, we didn't want to blow your whistle, so we left it to you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Then we'll go to our next guest and bring it in before we open our conversation.
Yeah.
Tell our audience, the people of the issues room, the viewers, the listeners, the followers, and all, who is Akina Wesley?
Well, Ikena Wesley is a composition of journalistic tendency with Ghanaian orientation, particularly, and having had the opportunity to work in Nigeria, returned home, became back-to-back period columnist, navigated public survey for some time, served as technical writer for the Liberation Authority, and then transitioned to the Ministry of State, where I served as Director of Communication at the time. We zero in with Comrade Pia, who is here today, who was then Presidential Press Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Um,
and and,
and
and
we
quickly,
also
quick.
hear that you've
Yeah,
gotten
go
some
ahead.
laureates in communications,
I didn't get that.
Son Lawrence.
like awards and
Oh yes,
accolades.
that was referred as PUL back-to-back columnist of the year,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
two times running.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then which of the papers you work for?
Uh, it will interest you to know that this guy contributed to nearly four newspapers simultaneously writing on different topical issues at different times, consistently.
Okay.
So yes, I think
Heritage, I was a founding member of the Public Agenda with Gibson Cheru, uh, Steve,
Okay.
I beg your pardon, not Steve
Yeah.
Secret, Moses Gray, New Vision, uh, Adolphus Dolo run Inside Newspaper, you know, and randomly a contributor writer at Front Page Africa.
all right. We're hearing a little bit of
I
pounding
think
in the back. I'm not sure.
I think that
Someone's
could
trying
be.
to be a carpenter. There's a
Yeah.
lot of banging.
It's
I'm not sure if it's
it's.
coming from you, but let
I
me
don't
bring
think
in
it's from him. It's
let
not
me
from
bring
him.
in let me
Yeah,
bring in Mr. Pia.
it's from him.
It is from
Okay.
you.
Yeah, it's
Moses,
from
I
Okay.
him.
got it. I got it.
Okay.
Let's see from this end. Mr. Pia, welcome to the issues room for the first time. Thanks so much for honoring our invitation to be here. We couldn't have this conversation without uh, solid professionals like you who are contributors to the media, and we thought to bring you in. Please tell our audience a little bit of who Mr. Gerald Nimek Matthew Pia is.
Thank you. Jerome Matthew Pia is a Liberian citizen. He comes from Grand Bassa County. He's a former assistant minister for administration at the Ministry of Gender, former deputy minister for public affairs at the Ministry of Information, former acting minister of information, former press secretary, Office of the President, Republic of Liberia, a graduate degree in international relations from the University of Liberia, another graduate degree in public administration from the Harvard Kennedy School, Harvard University. Just a little bit about myself.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
very
much. And
much.
that sets the stage so that our viewers and audience out there understand the panel here tonight and the conversation that we are about to delve into. And Moses, you and I are aware that the collaborating political the CPP, has been through a lot over the last year. Uh, the situation started with the whistleblowing of Ben Ayure regarding the tampering of the document that they all
A
affixed
framework
their
document.
signature to,
Mhm.
that would guard the CPP as it made its progress through the electoral process up to national elections. And so, as a result, The current chairman at the time, and I believe still chairman, Mr. Alexander Cummings, was blamed, including Musa Ability, and so it created, a split. Some of the political parties decided to walk away. To begin with, the ALP, followed by the UP, and also the Lawrence Kanga portion of the Liberal Party.
Liberal Party.
So as it stands, the CPP is only now being led by the ANC, and I believe I haven't heard whether the Musa Ability faction of the LP has left. Um, but just a background of where the CPP is today.
And Volcano, quickly, if I can add on to what you said, uh, the CPP was established in 2020. And the
Mhm.
fundamental reason behind that is to make George Weah a one-term president. That's what drove the Unity Party, the Alternative National Congress, the ANC, the All Liberian People Party, ALP, and Labour Party to form a merger, come together to ensure that George Weah becomes a one-term president. But given where we are today, I think that objective seems to be far-fetched. Let me pause there and give it back to you.
And so I would then go on to Mr. Wesley, based on the premise we put forth, and you following all of the news emanating out of Liberia regarding this whole conundrum of the CPP over the year, with all of what has happened. From a critical analysis and as a columnist and a journalist, if you were writing a piece and from everything you've gathered over this period, what would be the measurables that you would put forth to say whether the CPP is still an organic, evolving institution, or is it about dead?
Thank you, Volcano. After my conversation with Moses yesterday, I sought to do just opposing of conceptualizing what the issue will be in terms of the historical, the contemporary, and the perspective as far as our country is concerned. I tell you something, the late Emeka Odumedu Ojukwu wrote a book entitled Because I'm Involved. And the subtitle of that book was The President Who Never Was. He was referring to the late Obafemi Awolowo.
Is there a way we can probably, is this knocking coming from your place or neighbors or something?
Is that you, Wesley?
It, yeah, I'm downstairs in the office, and then I'm downstairs in the basement, but they on the first floor.
Oh,
Yeah,
so the
it's
carpenter is
just too
busy up there.
terrible. Yeah,
Okay.
it's very
All right.
terrible for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Is
right,
it,
continue.
a carpenter?
Yeah,
If it's not urgent, maybe they can pause because
Yeah.
it's even overshadowing your voice.
Yeah, you're not getting your message through. Can you talk to them? And while he trying to handle that, then Mr. Pia can just go
Yeah, yeah.
ahead.
That's why
Yeah.
I said if it is not urgent, because if a
Yeah.
carpenter left his house to come and do a piece of job, he's not going to pause because Wesley is on one talk show.
I know. Okay, so let's see. He's
Yeah.
back smiling. Hold on, let me bring him back.
Yeah.
I,
Okay, go ahead,
were you
sir.
able to get through and just ask them for a little bit, minute or so? Okay,
Okay.
all right.
So let Mr. Pia
Let's come
just
back to
go.
Geraldine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in the same vein, let's take that question from your perspective. Do you think the CPP is still a viable, institution with the same agenda and the mandate to make the WIA government a one-term government, or from all of what you've heard, is there a chance that they can re-galvanize and bring their former members back into the party or the conglomeration or collaboration to do this together?
Well, firstly, what I think is valuable is for your guests to hear each other out. So, okay, thank God Ikina is back. So,
So let's hear from him and then come back to
yeah,
you.
yeah, it's
Okay.
good for the guests to listen to each other.
All right. So
Yes, Ojukwu made an apt description of Obafemi Awolowo at the time, way back in 1981, in the Nigerian elections, where he referred to him as the president who never was. Obafemi Awolowo saw himself in the presidency far ahead of an elections. We have a classic example of a CPP, I beg your pardon, that never was. That is the story. That is how they are going to go down, because the CPP was now funded on account of, take Mr. Weah, for example. He might not be, as it were, that sophisticated person. But before he went into an alliance or a coalition with a group of people, he was very clear. And his message was, I got the numbers. All of you need to rally me. I carry number one, and I cannot go second to anybody. He was very clear about that. The CPP folks thought they had democratic credentials in their DNA. And along the way, they were not clear about precisely what they had wanted to do. Personal interest, greed, egotistic, mindset, the issue of entitlement. All of these have sort of crowded the CPP. But mind you, as a result of the first 6 months of Weah's blunder, the 16 billion, missing 25 million mop-up, joblessness, the inability of the government to show some level of leadership, desperation, frustration has set in, and so the people wanted an alternative. That birthed the CPP. The birth was that well conceived from the grounds of patriotism and love for country. Because we would not be talking about a dead CPP on arrival today had they sought to put countries before self. So the whole crumbling of the CPP is a result of self before country. And that is where we're going to go down. Nobody make any mistake to say that there's going to be a resurrection. They are dead on arrival. The court situation further expose the inability of a group of people who want to lead us to show lack of leadership and to demonstrate to the Liberian people that they are even better than Mr. Weah.
just before Mr. Pia comes in, Moses, I just pick up on something you said. Do you think that now, with what you put forth regarding putting country first and redefining the roles, we are saying, look, I'm number one, I got the money, I got the popularity, I got the numbers, I'm going as president. You want to go with me, Joel? You come in as vice president. Whoever wants to come, we apportion this thing. So if they decided to reconvene and have that conversation, you think it's not possible? Because the Liberian people are still hopeful. They want an alternative, and you can see it. It's pervasive in the atmosphere. If you went to Liberia, very pervasive. With me coming from there in the last month, so there's a lot of hope. So do you see that if they clearly redefine the roles and say, listen, Baka, man, before the two powerhouses here is Cummings and Baka. Cummings got the money, maybe Baka got the people. Let's find a way that we can harmonize and then take this thing. Do you see that?
It will only take a magic formula And that magic formula is not going to descend from the heavens. The extent to which they were involved in nasty mudslinging, character assassination, the formation of proxy wars that has further denigrated and disintegrated the very foundation of the CPP. Coming back, we'll take a magic formula.
Okay. Let's hear from Mr. Pierre. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. There is one very important aspect of my introduction that I left out. I believe it's more important than all the other ones I said, so I just want to say it and then move into the question, which is the fact that beyond all that I said, I'm married to Mistress Laura Pia. I got some wonderful kids, 4 daughters, and a boy. Great family that I love and cherish so much. So that is a part of my being.
Thank you.
To answer your question, I think there were negative issues associated with the very foundation of the CPP. And because of that, in my opinion, the CPP did not even exist. And if we wanted to find a way to believe that they existed, then they existed just in form and not in substance. Because they are two separate things. If we say Vacano Shelton is Vacano Shelton, there are attributes and characteristics that make Vacano Shelton to be Vacano Shelton. But if we say someone is running a school, it's not just the fact that you put out a building and then it is concluded that you have a school, even if the instructors who are supposed to be teaching in that school are not competent, they don't have the credentials, they don't know what they're doing, then that school exists just in form and not in substance. Why do I say so? And I think Ikina touched on that a little bit when he made reference to the coming into being of the Coalition for Democratic Change, led by President Weah, that eventually is the governing party in Liberia now. When the folks were bringing the CPP into being, the first thing they needed to do was to be historical. You know, history can lead us into identifying issues, missteps that can be corrected in future endeavors. The initiative to have a CPP was not the first of collaboration or alliances in the Liberian political terrain. Prior to even Mr. Weah Coalition for Democratic Change, I remember quite well in 1997 when Mr. Taylor came and we're trying to leave the war year and transition back to democratic political processes. Forces were coming together on an arrangement that was basically controlled by the Liberian Action Party. And you saw certain things that took place there that made Madam Selly, my former boss, who was a part of that arrangement, to walk away, eventually becoming a candidate in that very election, but on the party, on the Unity Party's ticket. That was the same problem. The foundational issues were not addressed, and they just went into something believing that it will work. The same thing happened to the CPP. In fact, they witnessed what took place, what we normally refer to as the Ganta Declaration before the 2017 elections. It was the same Mr. Cummings, it was the same Ure, it was Mr. Weah himself, it was the late Bronsky. They have, and Prince Johnson, they've gone to Nima County and had what they call this Ganta Declaration that was going to bring them. I'm sorry, 1 minute. That was going to bring them together, you know, to contest that election. But during that process, something important came into play, like Ikina said. Mr. Weah realized that all of the folks that were coming around his party, yes, they may have had different things to offer, but he was convinced that he had the number. And I think from the beginning, because they could not have an understanding about this whole number politics, after Ganta, everything collapsed. So when he came back to Monrovia, the only thing he did, which was very logical, he left all the big guns because he knew Bronski would want to run at all costs. Mr. Cummings would want to run. Others in the arrangement would want to run. So he said, okay, I can't deal with these people. What did he do? He came to the former governing party, MPP. And then Alex Taro had established a thing he called LPDP, which was a party that just existed in name, but had nothing to be called a party. So he grabbed them and said, okay, we have LPDP, we have MPP, we can collaborate, but I have the number here. So I'm going to be the standard bearer. These folks agreed. John Mr. Weah, and he didn't just say, I'll be the standard bearer. He said, I will single-handedly decide who my running mate will be. They accepted. So once they came together, there was no holy battle because Mr. Weah made clear his intentions, they accepted, and we move forward. In the case of the CPP, as Ikina said, personal ambition was at the highest peak of all of the arrangement. In fact, politically, if I should borrow from what Moses said, the CPP was established to make Mr. Weah a one-term president. How can that be a realistic goal or objective of forming a collaboration? Just to want to make an individual a one-term president? It had to be border on what capabilities they were bringing on board to help to transform a country that has been so much so robbed. Leadership after leadership, the country continues to be challenged. They have to be coming with fresh and brand new ideas as to how they can remedy the country's problem. If the intention was, in Moses' war, just to make Mr. Weah one-term president, then again, there was another foundational neglect that was definitely going to plunge them into problem. And if I say the CPP did not exist in substance or form, let me give you an example. If Moses and Volcano agree that they're going to be one in pursuing a goal, how is it that Volcano be wanting what Moses has and Moses wanting what Volcano has? What does it tell you? Moses and Volcano should be going outside and adding on to what the both of them have and not taking away from each other. What am I saying? You saw the ANC in particular recruiting members of constituent parties of the CPP. The likes of Larry Nyankwe and other people were leaving their party being recruited into the ANC. If the intent was to collaborate and do this political business as a bloc, why are you featuring members from one another's party? Those were warning signs. Those were clear early warning signs that, look, individuals and institutions within this arrangement have selfish motive. And at best, they are rather serving those selfish motives than that which benefits the collective. No one saw the early warning signs. Instead, it was normal that LP can recruit a Unity Party can recruit LP partisan, this other person can recruit, and it was normal. So okay. Places, some of us, from where we sat, I had private conversations with many persons, and I told them that this arrangement is not going to work. I know the discussion will run further and we'll have more things to say, but just to answer your question, it's not going to work. And with regards to whether we can resuscitate, I said, no, we cannot. And the desperation of the Liberian people that you made reference to will now vanish because those contending against we are not in a collaboration. The Liberian people are very sensitive. They know what they want. So even if the candidates in the elections to come are 12, the Liberian people are fully aware of what they need from those 12 parties. And as the case has been normally, where a first one victory is very difficult, one of those opposition political parties will be in whatever roundup that will come about. And there and then, I will determine how nationalistic and patriotic some of the actors are, whether it is selfish to the end, or you check a brick and look back and say, okay, yesterday we bruised each other very well, because each of us wanted to be. He
Okay,
didn't
so
see that we went our various ways. The Liberian people have not acted. They chose John Brown and Peter Paul to go in a runoff. At that time, if Mr. Bouaka says, Vice President Bouaka, who is my party standard bearer because I'm a unity party, if, for example, Mr. Cummings were in that runoff, and Vice President Bouaka says because of the rancor they had during these CPP processes, he cannot support that opposition man who is now in the runoff, then we can make a decision to say, so it was not all about the country. And it was not all about believing that we are does not have the capability and is not doing the right thing. Because if
okay, so
then one of you being in the runout, no matter what it is, should be embraced, irrespective of the conflict you all have had towards this, during the CPP process.
great analysis, Mr. Pierre. Now, I heard you and Mr. Wesley insinuating that the CPP has crumbled.
Ever since.
And the CPP, the setup, the way they laid the foundation, has serious errors that they did not clearly state who will head the collaboration, who will be the candidate. And as a result, they started having they started having internal problem, And today, the CPP is on the brink of, crumbling. Now, are you telling us that?
Moses, did you say on the brink?
Yes, that's what I would say. Because
It has crumbled.
Musa Belete,
Is there another
and Alexander Comey, they still claim to have
That's not
a
CPP. That's not CPP. The documentation that was submitted to the national election for that arrangement called CPP
Yeah.
accounted for 4 constituent parties.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you have.
Yeah, right now you have two.
Two of those
You have
parties.
two parties, yeah.
You don't even have 2 parties.
It's one and a half. One party and a faction.
You don't have nobody Kanga Lawrence and her Liberty Party there. So
That's
you
what
don't
I'm saying. One party and a faction.
Exactly.
So let's accept that the CPP has crumbled. Does this in any way suggest that the opposition is in trouble in Liberia? Any of you can take that.
If I should start, I just told you no. The last comment I made before your question came was that the people of Liberia, they know exactly what they want.
Okay.
So if you bring 20 actors before then to contest in the 2023 elections, there'll be no first round winner, except by some magic that will convince me later. There'll be no first round winner.
Okay.
And because fighting an incumbent is a kind of challenging thing because they have all kinds of things in their favor, resources.
They have the resources, yes.
I can project that the current ruling party will sell any whatever runoff that will come, and one of the opposition parties will be there. And that's what I said. At that point, if elements of the opposition party that would not survive the initial election refuse to rally around an opposition candidate that have reached the runoff on account of the experiences they had during the CPP process, then my conclusion would be everything they were doing, even towards the CPP, was selfish, not nationalistic, not patriotic, was not meant for the interest of the people. And for such persons, take it from me, they will have an everlasting X as far as their political life in the Liberian political terrain is concerned. They'll be done. To say because I'm not in the runoff, I'm not going to support the opposition candidate, you are dead and buried at that point politically, never to resurrect in Liberian politics.
And what do you think, Wesley?
Any thought? Yeah, any thought, Mr. Wesley?
Yeah, Mr. Wesley, what's your thought?
Moses, most of what we see from time to time in the form of mushrooming political party during electioneering processes are people who are getting involved, not necessarily because they got numbers, but because they want to be brought to the table when we hit the point of a runoff. And so the mushrooming will be there. By the end of the day, we're going to head for a runoff. And it's during that runoff that it will come to the table, irrespective of whether they got 0.001 or whatever, to come and pledge, often pseudo pledges without bringing numbers to the table, or guaranteeing that they got a constituency that they can rally in order to win votes during the second round. And so Comrade Pierre is very much correct. If we're going to have the same 22 like we had in 2005, we head for a runoff. And that runoff will be a deciding factor to prove whether those in the opposition who have been clamoring that Weah is an asshole politically and he needs to be booted out, that is where the rallying call will actually be invoked. But mind you, Pierre hinted that you have an incumbent, and the power of incumbency you cannot underestimate. State resources available, and as we speak, although our good friend and president was in Dubai to go and say sorry, I'm not sure how many other African leaders were there to say sorry, but the essence of that between you and me is to rally ahead of 2023, beyond going to tell the bereaved family sorry there in the United Arab Emirates. So already they are telling us that they're going to have an unassailable win. They are clamoring their thoughts from the perspective that what failed them in 2020 with the ATM could metamorphosize into some magical political arrangement to have them renew their mandate. And that is a farce.
So let me just
some of the time, you cannot fool all of the people all of the time.
Let me just say this here. You look at Liberia's political climate. Everyone seems to want to be president. And I think it sounds so cheap to me, because you and I here in the US, we see how much of money is put to campaigning, put to ads, just ads alone in the political season. And you would think that it would make sense for political parties to collaborate, especially opposition parties, if they have the intent to change an incumbent and for the purpose of, improving the country and the lives of the people. Where would the monies come from if all of these guys go separately in the separate ways? Do they think they can still fool the people with t-shirts? Because it's an expensive venture to think about it if people go independently or by themselves. What is your thought?
It's an expensive venture, but it is not always about the money. Ikina just made reference to 2020 and the quote-unquote ATM machine. Mr. Dillon, who was overwhelmingly elected by the people of Montserrat County back to back, did not have the finances. He did not. Jonathan Charles Soway was in River G, moving against the ruling party's candidate. He didn't have resources.
Professor Pierre, let me just pause you quickly. You think that can fester at the presidency, to be with no money to run your ads, to put your resource, your team?
So you really believe, for example, since you mentioned the presidency, so you really believe, for example, that Mr. Weah won the election in 2017 because he had more money than everybody else that were in the elections?
That's not what I'm saying. I know there were other factors influencing.
So you have Mr. Cummings who cannot be contested that he has money. He was in those elections. The Liberty Party, by that time, they've raised a lot of money. The first party that started displaying fleets of electioneering materials, such as vehicles and others, in their dozens, was Bronskin's Liberty Party. People were wondering where the money was coming from. There were a whole lot of assumptions and hypotheses. For some, Dangote in Nigeria was pumping in some money. For others, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and the government were giving them money. Different hypotheses were formed. They have money. The Unity Party wasn't broke either, even with the apparent division.
Mm-hmm.
The Unity Party was not broke either. They have money. But the people were resolved. They knew what they wanted. Money, no money, they knew what they wanted, and they went for it. What I'm saying to you, the money will exist. Yes, you may be able to do a couple of things easily because you have money. But doing a couple of things easily will not translate into the people's vote. Because after you spend the money, after you canvass, after you do everything, each individual who's going to enter the small booth and receive a voting card will decide at that point what they want for their children, their generation, and their unborn people. And they will take that decision right there and then. And let me tell you another thing that people are not paying attention to. If you're in a political business, you got to, from time to time, be doing survey analysis and different kinds of research to inform your behavior in the political terrain. The people are aware that every time elections are held and they choose leaders, those leaders turn their back in most instances. So they are also developing the concept that because when we give them power, they're not going to look back to us. We're always going to try to get what we can get from them at the time they want the power. And getting what they want from you, I repeat, will not translate into they being compelled or forced in a small room to cast that ballot on your behalf. What am I saying in summary? All of the individuals will be contesting 2023, including Dr. Waka, Mr. Cummings, and others who we may not know now, all stand equal chance, even with the financial advantage of the ruling party, because that financial advantage will only make things much easier for them in terms of the processes, but it does not necessarily make it easy that you get all the people's vote or majority of the people's vote.
Thank you, Moses.
Yes.
Before you come in,
Yeah.
let's go to
Mhm.
intermission quick. If you
Sure.
just join us, welcome to the Issues Room, our 63rd edition. Tonight we're discussing the CPP. We have with us comrade Kenna Wesley and Geraldine McMatthew Pia, both are veteran Liberian, eminent journalists, joining us here tonight to critically analyze the CPP where it's at today. Both gentlemen said it's dead on arrival, but there are some who still have hope rather in the CPP, and so
Yeah.
we'll keep the hope alive. Our broadcast is on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 11 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, or what we say Liberian time. It's on Friday as well, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 11 p.m. The broadcast comes to you live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter when we broadcast on Tuesdays and Fridays, and a repeat on ABC 105.1 FM in Monrovia. We want to thank the management team out there, Joe and Michael Toll, for all you do for the Issues Room. We say thank you for partnershiping with us. We want to encourage you, our viewers and listeners, continue to follow us, continue to like us, continue to spread the link, invite a friend. Let's make the Issues Room bigger than bigger. We are the alternative here on social media. We strive to bring in the best guests, expert analysis, just to discuss those national issues pertinent to our country's future. And not just Liberia, but we also cover the African continent and the Black diaspora. Moses?
Yes. Let me come back to Mr. Pierre and Mr. Wesley. The CPP primarily came together to make George Weah a one-term president. And the argument being put forth is that George Weah or President George Weah is grossly incompetent. He doesn't understand contemporary politics. He stays engaged. His administration is brazenly corrupt. Today's Liberia, there's a complete breakdown in the rule of law. And these are all bases that gave rise to the formation of the CPP. That, hey, allowing George Weah a second term, Liberia future will remain in trouble, or the future of Liberia will be what? Doomed. Do you think that this is achievable? Since now we have this crisis with the CPP, if the CPP doesn't stand, do you think George Weah can be a one-term president? If the people of Liberia are to save the future of that country, because Mr. Weah, it's a disappointment. What do you think, Mr. Pierre?
Maybe Ikeda could start because I just in there a long
Yeah.
narration.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Wesley. Do you think George Weah should be re-elected, and re-electing George Weah, will that be something good for Liberia? There is a man who has no clue in terms of what is happening around him.
That's one of the most pathetic political excess baggage we've inherited as a result of the action, the decisions of our people in 2017,
Mhm.
who had preferred a populist leader coming from a slum community, understanding the issues affecting people who live in the slum, who were bred, who were buttered in the slum, and coming to power and reflecting their aspirations by creating opportunities to be able to improve their livelihood and give them a better future. Unfortunately, that is not the case. I'm not sure how many times Mr. Weah has visited the various slum communities. First of all, to say thank you for having voted me. There's no history of that. Going back to the people to seek their renewed mandate,
Mhm.
it's going to be like, hey, you want to matter when it is time to get me elected. Earlier on, I hinted that sure you can fool some of the people some of the time, you can fool all of the people some of the time, but you just cannot fool all of the people all of the time. Now let's face it. Here is a national leader who has devolved power to his chief of office staff, relegating the presidency to one of a show base. And that shouldn't be the case. The presidency is sacred. People elected to that presidency owe it to the people and are accountable to the people. Unfortunately, we have a situation where our leader has no history of facing the Liberian people through other press engagement or town hall meeting, as it were, to relate, engage, and get them to understand the policies, the so-called pro policies that they came up with. And of course, Volcano, Moses, you all know that somebody woke up one morning, went back to the previous government poverty reduction document, copied and pasted, juxtaposed, rephrased, and today they claim they have the proper agenda for prosperity and development.
Prosperity. Yeah.
How poor can they be in a country where you claim that university tuition is free and our people are not feeling any semblance of that? That you pay YS fees and YS asking you to do the remittance and you are not able to deliver. That in your very presence, 25 million intended for mob or unaccounted for. You invited into our local and international auditors. They presented a report. You haven't taken action. 30 million intended for so-called stimulus. Fiasco. Nothing has happened. You have a government where a minister will go and beat up people in the street and nothing comes out of that. Okano, you were just in Liberia. I can imagine how many people were at your door in the morning. Whether you knew them, you didn't know them, but you saw the real harsh reality of a biting economic system. They say they are building roads. They are not building roads. We see them doing neighborhood roads, largely in areas where Soweto lives. Because if they must make a case 2023, they got to be telling us what they say they've done, and not to convince us that a continuation of projects coming from the previous government should be what they should be referring to. So with these lightening of issues facing our people, socio, political, economic, they had training issues. Pokano just saw about the issue of the journalists. That's somebody will say isolated. Of course, you'll be defending the government. But it should not be acceptable.
No, that's unacceptable.
It's condemnable.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a Bobo president who has not demonstrated the wit or the common sense to live above going to the football field to practice or going any up at the newfound invisible park, causing traffic and embarrassing peaceful citizens who should be going up and about to do their normal routine.
So, Mr. Wesley, quickly, based on the explanations that you have just given or that you have just made, are you indirectly telling us that re-electing George Weah will endanger Liberia's future?
Our future is already in danger. We'll be further compounding our future.
Okay. And what you say, Mr. Pierre?
You know, everything that is happening in Liberia, those who feel the pinch that much, are the ordinary people living in the country. If you can't find a bag of rice to buy, or you find it, but the price is skyrocketed, it is the ordinary people who feel it. If somebody got to buy 2 gallons of gasoline, like a friend told me today, for $17, 17 US for 2 gallons of gasoline.
And Pierre, I saw that coming. I was there. I was just there the first day.
Prior to you linking me on this show, I was on the line. You realize I was on the phone. I was talking to somebody in Liberia who I just said, well, I just laying out in the room. I can't go anywhere because we can't find the gas. So I can't move anywhere. I just got to stay home and lay down here. All right. Others will argue it's a global problem, but you live in America. Yeah, it's a global problem in terms of price, but there's availability. That's what leadership is. So when there's availability and the price is only high, then people understand that, you know, there are factors beyond the control of the authorities that determine that. But you can find it. That's leadership problem. We've had so many instances of not even being able to find a staple, rice. President himself got to be taking journalists to go to a rice warehouse. That's a problem. Too many security problems. Too many security problems. The way people are dying in the place, you know, it's just a problem. Nobody feels really safe. The fundamental responsibility of any government is to protect lives and property. That's the fundamental thing. If you can't guarantee that, then every other thing about governance is zero. What am I saying? Who's feeding these things? There are some people, no matter how difficult things are in Liberia, they up there, they will make it. But a generality of the people who in fact constitute the bulk of the voting population are the ones who will feel it. So what can I say about 2020 election? We can say all we want to say will just be opinion. Everybody got one. It's like gnosis. So I can say, I think we will not win. We will win. Those are our opinion. The people who live in those conditions, they will have an opportunity to right what I consider a wrong that they did, because nothing has worked, and they are the ones who are feeling it. They will have that opportunity once more to decide what it is. They will have to sit down and ask themselves question. This government is in its 5th year. Are we better off in 5 years than we were 5 years ago? The answer to those questions should guide them into the decisions they will make. And whatever they decide, it is them that will still live it. Even though if the country gets messed up, though in the United States, you are a Liberian, but you got families there, you feel it as well. If your country is reaching a level where internationally it looks isolated, you feel it. How do you feel, Moses, living in the US? And knowing that the US is the most important international partner of Liberia, we refer to them as our traditional partner. Your Minister of Foreign Affairs, who presides over, even though the president is the chief foreign policy architect, but he has a representation through his Minister of Foreign Affairs. How do you feel that the one you call your foreign minister, since he left this country as the ambassador to the UN, he can't come here? Whatever the reasons are, we don't know. Whatever we hear out there is just speculation because there's nothing formal. But it is normal that the foreign minister will come to America more than any other place.
Of course.
But come here. It doesn't move the president. Since Mr. Kimanya left his office at the UN, the most principal global organization where our representation matters, he is yet to have a replacer. That seems normal to the governing authority. I'm told that, I think at the AU or so, we have problem there with having a full-time ambassador. This government, it is said that they have a very close and very good relationship with France. We've not had an ambassador proper in France since he came to power. We have a chargé affairs. Don't we ask ourselves question what these things mean? And it's normal?
So, and just to quickly add to what you're saying, and I think it speaks volume, to have a country where I can turn my hand forward and backwards. I ain't see no real correct president visited Liberia since this government came to power.
Absolutely not.
I love it.
That comrade Ikina says.
Yeah.
When Ellen Salih, I mean, everybody got their own problem, and people can say what they want to say about it. It's okay, it's normal, that's democracy. When she came to power, tell me who didn't go to Liberia. Trudeau from Canada was prime minister, he went there. The Chinese president went there. All the people you think about as superpower.
We saw war, and just to add on to what you're saying, Mr. Pierre, we saw world leaders trooping to Liberia. And from what you have said and what Wesley said, and also what Volcano is saying, all of these, tend to support
good governance.
The disposition, good governance is supposed the disposition of the CPP that while George Weah should be a one-time president.
No, what I'm saying when I said good governance, when you have these things that he talked about, having
these
replacement in
very important.
Service and international guests are coming presidents, that's showing good governance. People want to do business. People respect what's on the grounds. Yeah. But by you going to the UAE,
the place I was going with this, place I was going with this, Moses, is to give you enough reasons.
Absolutely.
Why Mr. Weah should not continue to be president. But
absolutely right.
Like I said in the beginning, there are people who are living all these things we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? They got that power in their hands, 2023.
Absolutely.
They got to examine the situation and ask themselves the hard questions. What has happened since the regime came to power? Based on their leadership, are we better than what we were before they came to power? Yeah. If that question is satisfactorily answered by the people in their minds, then they can continue to live with it, right?
Yeah.
But I was making a point to say, governance, we failed miserably. It's a disaster. And if it is a disaster and the people want to act, I come back to my beginning point. If it is a disaster and the people want to act, it doesn't mean that the options they have should necessarily be an alliance, a collaboration, or whatever you call it, they will still look up because you see, a lot of good time was wasted. Moses, what besides the 2020 midterm election, where the people managed to pick up seat here, there, Yana, right? What work has been done by what you guys all saw as a CPP? Nothing. All the energy was spent on bruising each other. The surrogates are so inept. The surrogates don't even understand the political environment. The surrogates don't know what is important for the people. And they were all out there bruising and tearing each other apart.
Okay.
With no focus on taking this arrangement you call CPP forward. So all that time that was wasted in my mind, if the individual political parties have come back to their closet and begin to strategize, organize, and do their party work, they would have achieved a lot.
Absolutely.
The energy they used to bruise themselves, not 5% of that same energy was used in trying to deal with the government. That is the key problem of the day.
Yeah.
So they were prepared to self-destruct, then even engage in a realistic way, a failed administration that is leading the country down the path of a complete disaster.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Yeah,
So let me
absolutely.
quickly remind
Yeah.
let me quickly remind our callers here tonight, our viewers. The lines open 404-272-2808. Please call in 404-272-2808 to be a part of the conversation. If you are there with us and have anything on mind you want to share or you want to engage our studio guests, we'll here. Just do it professionally, respectfully, and in a civil manner. Please, the issues room, we don't use profanity. We don't go into verbal wars.
Mhm.
We appreciate people coming in and opinionating, but do it responsibly. Tell me
Yeah,
about it.
so let me just take you guys to this pronouncement that came from the former vice president, who having to be a key player of the former CPP, Joseph Boakai. The former vice president says he has no confidence in the commissioners of the NEC. He believes the commissioners are grossly incompetent and corrupt. 2023 is just a few months away. Do you agree with the vice president description of what is happening at the NEC? Pierre Wesley?
I
Just
think
now,
I think there's a lot of problem at the NEC, and in my mind, the vice president is correct.
Okay.
And the NEC has to be very mindful. Um, we've been away from war for a good length of time. Somebody could be tempted to believe that all is well. But there are things that can plunge a country into crisis that we must seek to evolve from time to time. We must keep on consolidating our peace. And one of the most important things we can do to consolidate the peace is to ensure that our elections are free, fair, credible, and transparent. I wouldn't go all over the place to justify why I agree with the vice president. I just use the last case they had to tell you that the election commission has problem. The chairperson of the election commission is a lawyer by profession. There are other lawyers who are commissioner. And you expect that they ought to know better. I'm not a lawyer, but my simple understanding of what fundamental rights are inform my judgment that what was being initiated by Mr. Ability and others, because two parties withdrew from them, therefore they should not be allowed to participate in an electioneering process. That was not attainable by law. And if the election commissioners, who are lawyers, they didn't know that, they didn't even know that that the Supreme Court, if you read the Supreme Court ruling said clearly that the net was wrong to have even entertain that case. They are lawyers. They didn't know that. During the period you were trying that case, you took weeks. Do you know what some of the issues could be? People could begin to rent towns and villages and kill each other in Lofa on the basis of believing that there was an attempt to disenfranchise people. They were not sensitive to the security implication of what they were doing. They wasted everybody's time having hearings, coming back to the Board of Commissioners upholding something. The Justice Minister guarded it indirectly when he made that particular statement that he didn't believe that someone's decision to withdraw from any arrangement can be hindered because it's the fundamental right. When he said it, he's the Attorney General. The NEC as a structure in the government, having heard that from the Attorney General, that did not inform their judgment. They still went ahead and did what they wanted to do, which was not based on the law. So it means that something was informing them to do what they were doing. That did not reflect their independence. That did not reflect transparency in their dealings. They put the country at risk. They wasted everybody's time. And in the end, the very Supreme Court has to come back and say what everybody already knew, with the exception of those of them who believe they were workable. Yeah. So if an election commission conducts itself in that manner, I can't but agree with the Vice President that there is an issue of incompetence, but not just that. There's an issue of partisanship in that election commission.
Good. Mr. Wesley. Are you there?
Yeah, hold on for Mr. Wesley. Mr. Wesley, just before you come in, let me take this caller quick. Let me just take this caller quick, Mr. Wesley.
Okay.
The caller is calling from a Maryland number. Am I right, caller? Are you there?
Yes.
Good evening. Welcome to the Issues Room. Are you following the conversation?
Oh, yes, sir. We are following the conversation.
Okay. Your name?
First name is William, last name is McDavis.
Okay.
I kind of a little bit late to start the beginning, but I follow every bit of what was going on the show.
Thank you.
So as the gentleman was saying about the CPP to make President Weah one-time president, they would have made President Weah one-time president. But here's my take though. They are divided. And then you don't see any kind of responsibility in the leadership of those who come together to be, the CPP. That's one thing. So they are fighting among themselves. So as a result, I look at the whole thing is that President Weah had a chance to win 2023 election. But here is the problem with President Weah. The problem with President Weah is that all of his government officials, if not all of the government officials, about 90% of the government officials, they feel comfortable in their comfort zone because you know what? No, none of them go to bed and then they thinking, say, oh, tomorrow I don't know whether I'll get a job. Because this is where experience come in, I work with the past government, the late presidential government before the war. When they said there's a cabinet meeting and say meeting supposed to go on at the executive mansion, when the ministers then come to meeting, they are afraid. They say, oh, maybe something will happen today. Maybe the president will fire somebody, or maybe the president will. In one of the cabinet meetings, the president was kind of late, so the security were in a room, and they were cracking jokes. And one of the ministers just cracked a joke. He said, I just coming from God John office, man. The place here, they will shake up today. About 2 ministers will go today. And the room was silent. Why do I say this? President Weah, this is not a disrespect to President Weah. But when you're talking about to be a president, I do not see the kind of, being presidential. Because he brings himself low to the extent that nobody afraid of him as a president, afraid of him as a president. So as a result, if today, as we speak, if President Weah could just reshuffle some of the cabinet and put things in place, I tell you, President will win the second time. Because the Liberian people, they are very unpredictable people, Mr. Shelton. You were in Monrovia. Let's take, for example, you talk about the coup that failed, the Kuangpa coup. When they heard that Kuangpa took over, everybody was rejoicing in Liberia. They were singing. But what happened? Right after 1 p.m., when the President Doe, made an announcement that those who were planning the coup, they failed, what happened? The same very people who were talking about, say, and do Mesa, what they say, we want to. So the Liberian people, despite all of the things that are going on in Liberia, a president where could just look at a future to say, look, I want to be the next president for the next 6 years and learn from those mistakes and start to make some rectification, correct some of the things. He will win. He will win because right now, who you look at in the opposition, I would say, you know what, he will he, he might win the election. For Cummings, he messed himself up because you know what, he joined the other people. If Cummings would have stayed alone and then build his own part of base and then start from there because he had a positive message. But now everything kind of collapsed. That's my part of intake. Thank you so
Thank
much
you, thank you.
for the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, let me just piggyback off what he said, and I think it's a critical piece he put forth. People go to bed and not worry about the jobs.
Oh yeah.
Just talked
Mhm.
about it. We have a foreign minister who doesn't have the international clout right now. Uh, many big time opening. When you look at the United Nations, we don't have a representation. That's serious stuff. And then you got ministers who walk to the president and dictate to him what's supposed to be happening, rather than him telling people, man, come, he bring this person and say hire the man, Mr. President. You're the man for
He
the
said,
airport. You're the man
uh,
for the seaport. You're the man for this. Oh yeah, go ahead, do your thing. No respect, no regards. And this president hasn't really done reshuffles. So when you think about a few people that he put aside and say, uh, we suspend you for XYZ, what comes out of it? So yes, I think that was a good point he made, because even in leadership, you and I know when you lead a group of people and you're not taking action, it's business as usual.
yeah,
So this guy was right. Those guys go to bed knowing that the jobs are secure because it's a credible government. It's a
yeah,
credible government. Let me just call it that way. Credible government.
yeah. Mr. Wesley, go ahead.
Uh, you know, I certainly do appreciate the sentiments expressed by the caller, but a reshuffle in the next 72 hours is not going to make any fundamental change. Uh, like our people will say, a whole rainy season, you put the bucket on and it did not get full. What do we
Yeah.
expect when the dry season has hit?
Oh no, when the dew falling.
Yeah.
that's that's correct. Yes, back to the issue of neck. Uh, the vice president, as the leading opposition figure in the country, has every right to be concerned about the manner, form, and shape of the National Elections Commission. Pia Squarely. It has become more of a partisan organization when in fact it's supposed to be an integrity one. NEC has not been able to address issues from 2017 that our donors and foreign partners have talked about over and over again, that our election coordinating committee has been heralding. We have a bluster voters registration roll that needs to be cleaned up, and we are pretty close to 15, 14 months away from a crucial election. At the moment, NEG is spending so much time turning herself into some kangaroo court. And by the end of the day, we saw what happened with the Supreme Court telling them that you have no fish to fry and just the other one. NEC needs to be overhauled. And President Weah can prove to be sincere about a free, fair, transparent election come 2023 by listening to very good voices out there for the complete overhaul of the National Election Commission to reflect the sort of integrity that will make the elections of 2023 credible and internationally acceptable.
Just before,
Let me just say this to you from a privileged position before
I
you
know
say
you
what you
want
want
to
to
say
say.
that. I know you want to say that. I just wanted to make reference that NEC is in the dark every night. I drove past the NEC every night. It's dark, pitch black dark.
No
If this is an
electricity.
integrity institution,
Yeah.
the lights are not on.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
That's
every
very
night.
serious. Yeah.
So just imagine what could happen there behind the scenes in the dark.
Yeah.
No security, nothing. The place is
Nobody
pitch
cares.
black dark.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you're
Go
right.
ahead.
You're right. So many problems with this election commission. How do you have the chairperson of a commission who was in court for stealing money?
Right.
Wow, that matter is still pending before the court. Yet this person heading an integrity institution is still in charge of elections. Where does that happen? The cannot rightly said, when Bronsky went to court in 2017, and that was the reason why some people were asking the Supreme Court, they have always made some decisions and so now the government challenged them, will they do something about this time around? Because part of the ruling when Bronsky went to court was to clean the
voter roll.
Yeah, the voter roll. As we speak, Moses, that hasn't happened. Now, in a place like America, you and I know how elections are held here.
Yeah.
Those who manage elections are elected, right? They are elected. These how do they call them? Secretary of State.
Secretary of State, yeah.
In the context of Liberia, the president is appointing these individuals. So that alone put a big dent on the issue of their integrity and independence. Big problem. What President Salif did, I mean, as an insider, one of the things she did was that when the time came to constitute the election commission, because she wanted to build confidence in the process, she reached out to the major parties. She reached out to the Liberty Party. She reached out to the CDC. Sam Joe, Commissioner Sam Joe, I think he's no longer on the election commission.
No, he's not.
He became a member of the election commission as a result of consultation.
He's currently in Philly.
The very deviator Brown Lasana, when President Sedi was making that consultation, she was recommended by the CDC. She was just seeking recommendation for them. Because if you recommend somebody and she sets up the commission, you have some little confidence in the process because you directly represented somebody.
Yeah.
So Pokoya, Sam Joe, the other Brown Lasana, all these people came on the election commission by recommendation from other political actors and not just the governing party. In this case, if you saw how the election commission was constituted, it was constituted 100% on partisan basis. So they have this serious cloud that is already hanging over them. And then these conducts that they are showing with what they just did with all the hearings that were not taking them anywhere and all of those stuff, is a problem. So again, I come back to the point to say, Ambassador Bwaka is right. And to that call, I mean, I accepted some of the things he said. I don't agree with some, especially when he made that analogy about Kuwamba coup and Do coup. If Kuwamba said he overthrew the coup change overnight, what do you expect people to do? So whatever they were doing in the street, you thought it was genuine thing or of fear because they were reprisal. You and I know that after that coup, a lot of people were killed.
Yeah, a lot of people died.
So people were jumping around and pretending they were not happy. They were doing something to try to save their life. What I agree with him on is the fact that I don't believe the government officials are afraid of the president. I have a privileged information example about one time the president went to France. And this very foreign minister we're talking about was involved in something that constituted disrespect to the president. And they were not even in-house.
Yeah.
And the current defense minister, Daniel Zienka,
had to intervene.
He didn't just intervene.
Yeah, contain the situation.
He grabbed the foreign minister by his collar and lifted him and said, none of this, nonsense, stop this. This is the president for going here and say. But the president himself did not see a problem with what Kimaya was doing. It took the defense minister who thought that this behavior was unacceptable, and he called out that foreign minister. when my brother Ikina Kingsman in how they call him, the one that was senator.
Balut?
No, not Balut, the other one.
Oh, Demorai.
Demorai. When Demorai was flogged, he was one of those whose flocking I was pleased with. This man was presiding on the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. When all these complaints were coming about Master Kimanya and his dealings in America. This guy didn't care. Apparently, he does not have any interest in the integrity of our country. He didn't care. He didn't want to listen to anything. He was chair of the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs. He was prepared to rush with some confirmation hearing in the midst of all of the disagreement and forcibly confirm Master Kimanya. That kind of action must have been informed because they were coming towards election time. You were looking for money. It must have been informed by Brown and all that kind of stuff. But yet he was flogged, and that was good because you have to be sensitive, Vakando.
Absolutely.
This man was your ambassador to the United Nations.
Yeah.
He's been accused by the staffer of sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment.
And the complaint is made formal. And you have no interest in looking at the merit of that complaint, but say, to hell with her, let us go ahead and confront the man. Mm-hmm. And once it happened in America, it was not just about her complaint there. The country where it happened, interest would have been taking hence the problem he has today of not being able to come to America.
Yeah.
And still, in support of what Akolo said, the president has not seen the need to remove the guy as though there is no other person in Liberia who can be foreign minister.
Yeah.
What is that?
And there are other people even in the government.
Yeah,
but character who have shown over time that in these 5 years they just don't have the country at heart.
All the laws that were surrounding Kando Bagbara, he's still
from LSCC.
How can you be running an integrity institution
when you have integrity problem?
You are beclouded by integrity issue.
Yeah.
What are we joking?
Yeah. And Mr. Pierre, like you said, I agree with you and Mr. Wesley 100% on everything you guys have said. Liberia has serious problem. Now come 2023. The future of Liberia is going to be what? 2023 will determine the future of Liberia. And you have an elections commission that has integrity problem. The chair of the NEC is being pro for malfeasance. And what do you expect the former vice president to say? How do you expect 2023 to be credible, the elections? How do you expect 2023 to be credible?
So my thought here before the gentleman comes in, I'm thinking here to myself, and I may be naive on this because I don't know the depth and the scope of the formation of the National Elections Commission, but in honesty, I would think that the people who represent that institution at the commissioner level should have no partisan affiliation.
Yeah, they should have no lineal side.
No party affiliation. And I'm Volcano here. I don't have no political party in Liberia. I could be a candidate. You understand what I'm saying? I'm just teasing, but there are many Liberians who don't have any political party affiliation. And with the pedigree and the experience and the qualification to be tapped, so that they'll have that neutrality, rather than always try to put people there who are going to have their interests. Because the bottom line is the electorates are the reason why you become elected. But if you put people there who have their interests, who will make a mess, who will do all of the secrets behind the scene to get you voted, then that, of course, recipe for chaos. It's just my thought. So I don't know if that's part of what, if it was a legislative act that brought the NEC to being, and whether to put something like that in there is something I can review later. But I would think in my layman's sense that all of those commissioners should have no political affiliation to any political party.
That has not been even during the past government. I was one of the person who personally took. That was my personal issue. Jerome Kokoya, for example, he had contested elections before, both on the ticket of the Liberty Party, and then eventually, I think, the ticket of the Unity Party.
Yeah.
So when he was appointed as chairman of the Election Commission, from a personal perspective, I thought it wasn't right.
Right.
So you come, I mean, the same way we treat the country from time to time, it continues. So you come to this period, Tipla Reeves, for example, she's one of the commissioners. She ran in Riverside. She wanted to be senator at one time on the CDC ticket. All right? So she's known, like it was with Kokoya, to have an open political affiliation.
Right.
Flaw, the other one they call Flaw. He was always being accused because he was the one who was running their data session.
Mm-hmm.
He was always being accused of manipulating data. In fact, he was at the center of Bronsky's case after the 2017 election. This man was made a commissioner. And people who got all of those information and know the historicity of all that has happened, they raised an issue again. The Senate said to them indirectly, to hell with you. Everyone who's been nominated here will be confirmed without looking at anything. And that is an integrated institution. If we're not careful in saying, let's just bear some patience, let's look beyond the horizon, let's see who these people are, let's do some background search, let's do something. And it's just because the need is being put forward by the president, therefore we are obliged to confirm, and that's what happened. The country will remain in trouble.
I agree.
Remain in trouble. And the worst trouble we don't want is the one that will evolve from having a compromised election, because that has the capacity to develop something into something bigger that nobody, absolutely nobody will be able to withstand.
So, gentlemen, we're running out of time. We have only 3 minutes to wrap this conversation up. So let's go back to the beginning from where we started. You both have said emphatically the CPP was dead upon arrival. What do you think is the way forward for Liberia's future come 2023? Let me begin with Mr. Wesley, and then Mr. Pia, and then Moses can throw in the last question, and we close the night.
Okay.
What is your take? What do you think would be the way?
I tell you squarely, with the CPP already dead, we're going to proceed with a free for all situation, and everybody go and flex his muscle. But we definitely have a run up.
Okay, Mr. Pia.
Well, I firmly believe so, and if the opposition community was sincere to themselves, and if and I let us start the critique with my party, because when they started all these things behind the scenes, someone else told them that what you did here is not correct. You even in countries, in jurisdiction where they give political parties money, when the state fund political parties, they give you funding on account of your performance in the elections. They don't give everybody account for the same amount of money. The same goes with these kinds of arrangement with coalition, all of these things. The fact that the Unity Party folks were not even sensitive to the fact that they got over 400,000 votes, and they were the challenger to the CDC that won the election, and they went into an arrangement and say, okay, we have consultation, VP error, and after that, if nothing worked, we'll go for primary, and we'll go for the primary, whether that Mr. Uris ALP, or Nyomli Kanga's Liberty Party, or Cummings ANC, everybody will get the same number of delegates. Where does that happen? These parties are not, in terms of what you use to evaluate where they stand, they're not the same. You go into an arrangement and say, if we will end up going for convention or primary, everybody will have the same number of delegates. And then the desperation was there where everybody wanted to be. So their best bet was a consultative process that built consensus. It doesn't mean it's not democratic. Many people just think when you say the process is democratic, it means you must hold election. Consultation, consensus building is a part of the democratic tenets. And because the environment was fluid, they should have been sensitive enough to know that any attempt to move into a process that will evolve into primary or contestation will crumble and collapse. None of them had the sensitivity to see that. We told them behind the doors that was wrong, it will not work. In the end, they proved us well. They did not do well in their negotiation, and that's what I said from the beginning. This whole thing was existing in form and not in substance. It has collapsed. The Liberian people will have the choice to make. Each of the parties can compete. I don't buy people who think that because we don't have a CPP, you go to an election, it's gonna be a free ride for Mr. We are like I said from the beginning, even with all the money, we will have a serial contestation, we'll have a runoff. And if the people who are part of the opposition were sincere about their opposition status, then they gotta be prepared to rally around whoever comes out of that runoff, irrespective of how they bruise themselves during the CPP process. Thank you.
Yeah, and for Canada, I would like to wrap it up by saying that ahead the way forward, Liberia needs a strong opposition. Liberia needs nationalists. 2023 will be a defining moment for Liberia. If George Weah is to be a one-term president, and we're talking about the future of Liberia, Mr. Weah has failed Liberia. He cannot continue. If Liberia is to move forward, then Liberia needs nationalists, people who love Liberia, who believe in the good of Liberia, coming together, working in unison for making George Weah a one-term president. Another way forward,
Okay, go ahead.
the NEC, the Board of Commissioners, like you guys have said, I agree with the former Vice President. Deanna Brown Lansana, the chair, and the others, they need to go. Deanna has integrity problem. It is a shame, it is embarrassing to have Deanna as chair of the NEC when she has such a dark cloud hanging over her head. All those people need to go. That's the way forward. Other than that, 2023 will be chaotic. That's how I would like to wrap it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Pierre. Thank you, Mr. Wesley, for coming through tonight to contribute. We'll come back to you guys momentarily, somewhere in the near future. As we roll around the corner, you can imagine how much of this conversation need to be held. Our people depend on us. We may not have all of the solutions, but we can reawaken the conversation and giving them something to think about. Because the more our people are informed, the better the decisions will be when it comes to selecting and electing the people who will lead our country into a brighter future rather than lead our country into trepidation, lead our country into perpetual darkness, keep our economy stagnant, keep our healthcare sector in shambles, the educational sector, every sector. But one important area that bothers me in Liberia, gentlemen, before I let you go, is the lack of rule of law in this current situation.
Oh, yeah.
The lack of rule of law. Everybody does what he or she wants to do with no fear,
No
no
leadership.
repercussion. You understand me? And it has to do with bad governance.
Mhm.
Let people say, police officers talk to me. Their hands are tied. Police officers, who's supposed to help? Look around you here. When you see a police officer, you're shaking. My own police officer, man, just stay on the road and say, man, I can't do anything. Somebody will pick up the phone and call me general and threaten me. So I just let the man go. They just do what they want to do. But we think there's a brighter day.
Yeah.
And let's keep hope, let's keep faith. Thank you, gentlemen. It was good having you, both of you, here tonight. Thanks for honoring our invitation. Couldn't do this without your expert opinions, here
It
tonight.
was indeed a pleasure, gentlemen.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
So Moses, that was it, man. Good
It
good
was
conversation. It was
indeed
good
a
having
great
both
show.
Takena and Jerolimic. I thought that they broke down some of these things. And let's hopefully continue to review this process and see if there will be some other way
Yeah.
forward. They've made it clear that oppositions, whether going single or going, collaboration, it wouldn't matter. It all boils down to the desire of the Liberian people for change
Absolutely.
and the prospect that it would never be a one shot elections where you have 51% or
No.
50.5% and 49.5%. It has to go to the second round, and that's
Absolutely.
where the water will get a little dirty. corruption would take place, money sharing hands, and all of that. But
Yeah.
again, we're going to hope for the best. It was good
Yeah.
having you here tonight. We'll be back here Friday. And I said, thank you for being there with me, bro.
Thank you too, Volcano. Thanks for all the hard work, the dedication, the commitment. It's always a pleasure teaming up with you in the issues room. Enjoy your week.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I know that again we are still metamorphosizing, coming through this new platform in terms of reuniting the issues room. We had to change our page to have a solid page of its own, and so we lost a lot of our followings who were attached to the previous arrangement. But hopefully, we can continue to grow. We want you to share the link with a friend. Uh, Continue to follow us. Listen, we're here for our country. We're here to make sure that we have these kind of conversations because it's good for us. People say we talk, but we do nothing. Well, at least we can talk. If we had the opportunity to do something, we would do something. But we're doing something because we're talking. I think talking is doing something. We're throwing light, we're enlightening. And that's what we continue to do. So again, we want to encourage you. Thank you so much for being there with us, Thomas Awaji, tonight. And we can do this with all your exceptional contribution, DC Wilson. It was good having you in the house. William McDavis, thanks for coming through. Wilhelm Tushert, good to have you here for the first time in the issues room. Kumba Abu, we say thank you for joining us. And Maplanikia, you people are dedicated to, to the issues room. We say thank you so much for being a part of our conversation. We'll be back here Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, you have a great one. Volcano Shelton here saying goodbye from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.